We did food insecurity. The problem that we decided to tackle is food insecurity, which is a problem where some people do not have stable access to food.
There have been many efforts to solve food insecurity, but the problem still mostly exists.
Quinn and I have thought long and hard about how to halt this problem, or at least slow it down a little. And we ultimately came up with three solutions to solve the problem.
The first solution that we came up with is to take the DNA of an animal and recreate the meat of that animal.
The second option that we came up with is to eat more plants and less meat.
And then the third option that we came up with is more controversial than the others, and that is to resort to cannibalism.
Let's talk about our first solution, making food out of DNA. Recently, there have been many technological advancements to stop food insecurity. One included making food out of DNA. A certain farm named Aleph Farms figured out how to sort of recreate the meat using the cells of cows, and they did it without even harming the animal. As our technology progresses even further, we'll soon create a way to mass produce this type of meat in a much faster way than growing and killing animals. Not only will this method sustain the animal population, it'll also just be as healthy and delicious to eat this fabricated meat.
This next solution is more eco-friendly than the other, and this solution is just to minimize the amount of meat in the average diet.
However, that does not mean that we'll take meat completely out of people's diets and turn them into vegetarians. We'll just cut down enough meats from people's diets so that they will be getting enough nutrients, and also so that the animal population is sustained.
Also, this method is cheaper and more time efficient than raising and slaughtering the animals.
If we use this method, then we could possibly save more and more food for those who have food insecurity. If everyone contributes and we can regulate certain diets, we can have just as more food overall. Sure, this method is not as big as the other two methods, but it can be just as important when trying to slow food insecurity.
This final solution may not be moral, but would be just as efficient or even more so than the other solution, being cannibalism. Instead of burying people when they die or cremating them, we instead send those bodies to factories to be prepared for eating. We would not eat already living people and would only eat them if they previously passed. To make sure people are fine with this method, the service that picks up the bodies would ask the family of the victim for consent, or we could set up the same system as being an organ donor where you sign up when you get your driver's license.
This concludes our presentation. Just to reiterate, we had three different solutions.
We discussed how to recreate certain meats using DNA and cells,
We talked about how using less meat could potentially save more resources.
and we talked about how cannibalism could potentially be a good option for this issue.
This is the prototype that we created. It is a flyer that simply tells you about food insecurity and how it's a major problem, especially in the United States. And it tells you the simple things that you can do to fix this problem.
This concludes our presentation, and thank you for listening.